Hello, once again. How are you doing? How are you doing? What it do? My name is Donald McKinney, and y'all know what it is. This is another episode of Out the Box Show. And man, I'm telling you, I got a great show for you today. And I couldn't wait to even get this information out to the public and to the family and to the community because, man, it's a question that has been running through my mind. And you know what? I ain't gonna even hold it in no more. I'm gonna let it be known and just get it off my chest, okay? First things first, what happened to the term Caucasian? Why don't Caucasian people call themselves Caucasian anymore? And why did they start referring to themselves as white people? Now, a lot of people would say that, oh, okay, it's because of, what you call racial integrity or, racial dominance over, said Negro, Indians, whatever. But I want to go a little bit deeper and talk about something that I found in 1898 in Wilmington, North Carolina, and it's called the White Declaration of Independence. Now, this declaration was due to a person by the name of Manley who had a press called The Record. He had a newspaper called The Record. And he printed up an article stating that because at that time in 1898, it was all about the barbarity of black men raping white women. And he wrote that if a white woman was with a black man, it was because she wanted to by her own free will. And man, white people did not like that at all. So let me tell you what happened. They literally went in and destroyed Wilmington, North Carolina. You know about the Rosewood Massacre, the Tulsa Race Massacres, and the different type of towns and places where black people existed, and then literally was just almost wiped off the face of the planet because of I don't want to say inferiority, but I want to say this complex of, racial hierarchy. I don't know what you call it, but do me a favor and go check out the White Declaration of Independence in Wilmington, North Carolina, 1898. Give that a read and a look out. And man, when I tell you, it will blow your mind on what was happening and what was going on in our country and history that a lot of white people don't want to talk about in particularly. Now, it behooves me because I look at it from a perspective of, a perspective of, can you have peace when there are people that believe these things about you in front of your face? It used to be dog whistle, but now today's society where we're getting at, a lot of Caucasian people in positions of power don't want to talk about the laws that have been created to protect black people. If anything, if you see with the DEI project of them rolling back the diversity projects and so on and stuff like that, they're trying to make it seem like it's a bad thing and it's something that shouldn't be acknowledged in our society, right? And specifically, it benefits, really liberal white women. From my research, more Caucasian people have benefited from these programs and stuff like that than black people who it originally was intended for. So it's kind of crazy because when you look at the declaration, the White Declaration of Independence, when they created this, not to get too much off a subject, but in that declaration, they proclaimed they would no longer and never again would be ruled by men of African origin. Go read it. They proclaimed they would no longer and never again would they be ruled by men of African origin. Now, I'm going to let that sink in just a little bit because I want you to really, really think about that. Was Caucasian people ever ruled over by black African people, black people in general? And if they were, when and how? So, when I look back through history, because when I read the Declaration, I was like, wow, this is pretty interesting. I've never heard about black people ruling over white people or white people being slaves. But go look at the records and it will blow your mind at why Caucasian people were and how they came to this country, specifically dealing with Ellis Island. Ellis Island was a program, was the first original immigrant program, which started in 1892 and went all the way up to 1954, with 12 million people coming through Ellis Island. And now those 12 million people make up 40% of America. 136 million people in America can trace their descendancy back through Caucasian people that went and came through Ellis Island. If you didn't know. Y'all know I'm a numbers guy, so I had to get these numbers because I was like, with all of this immigration and this DEI talk and stuff like that, and we need to send the immigrants back home, to know that over 100 million people, over 136 million people in this country are immigrants, and they want to talk about send the immigrants back home. Do we need to remind y'all that y'all Johnny come lately? Y'all barely been in this country for 100 years? The majority of Caucasian, over 50% of the American population has only been in this country for 130, 120 years, where you have black people that can trace their heritage back to over 200 and 300 years in this country easily. I mean, easily. So that right there is something that really, really sticks with me and something that kind of blew my mind because I was really, really like, I didn't know that. Why do why do white people don't call themselves Caucasian anymore? Because from what I'm hearing, if you go to a Caucasian person a white person, and you say has of Caucasian descent as well, and he said that Caucasian people were a primeval race, that they were a primitive race. Now, I felt that was kind of under the bus, throwing his own people under the bus. But I mean, no, maybe he's telling the truth, and maybe this is something that, we as melanated people need to take a deeper look into and a more informed look into, because when you look at the understandings of race in America, black people being called Negroes, right? That's a Spanish term for the color black. We were even called maroons at one time, you know what I'm saying? Seminoles and maroons, and specifically the word maroon, that means brown in Spanish. The color brown in Spanish is maroon. So, there has been this big push to kind of mix up the racial terminology, and I believe it's to steal people's land. I believe that it is to take people's land and disenfranchise people and not allow people to fully have an understanding of themselves, because lo and behold, if you ever knew that black people enslaved Africans, what if they taught that in schools? That the original slave masters were people of color, dark-skinned, melanated, Negroid, black, whatever they wanted to classify them as. But these were the first slave masters and slave owners. And white people were the slave trades. I mean, I even think that the Caucasian people going through what is called the Barbary slave trade, research the Barbary slave trade that happened, I think started in the 1500s and went all the way up to the 1800s. For over 300 years, Caucasian people were enslaved by Negroid black-looking people, specifically the Moors, how they went into Europe and civilized Europe. The Islamic slave trade, the Barbary slave trade. You have these different understandings or these different slave happenings specifically happen to Caucasian people, but we're not taught about it. We don't talk about it. We don't have any understandings on it. And I think that it is very, 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 very key critical for us moving forward as a nation of people to fully understand how far back does slavery go for all people. Because, we do understand that black people was enslaved, but were they enslaved? And if they were, how long were they enslaved? We know about American slavery. We know about African slavery, but why don't we talk about white slavery or Caucasian slavery? So that's just something that a little bug I wanted to put in people's ear, and get that post out there and stuff like that, because I thought that it was amazing that we don't talk about these wars and we don't talk about this stuff. So, do me a favor. Hit that like, subscribe, and share button if you're feeling the content and stuff like that. Once again, my name is Donald McKinney. This is another episode of Out the Box Show, and I will be bringing you these hard topics to talk about that are out the box, out of this world crazy, and hopefully you all are resonating with it. Till the next time, I'm a holla.